The United Nations is kicking off their General Assembly today, and tomorrow they're going to be graced with President Donald Trump headlining the General Assembly for the whole day. I'm sure his speech will only last about 20 or 30 minutes, and it's highly anticipated that that speech is just going to be Donald Trump rattling off all the reasons why he believes he deserves a Nobel Peace Prize, even though that's the wrong forum for it. Also, this is the United Nations, where Donald Trump's going to go and continue to spew the same rhetoric we've heard from him in an increasingly dangerous manner over the last 8 months. So Donald Trump's going to go to the United Nations, and he's going to divide the United Nations a little bit farther. He's already cut funding to the United Nations. He's already pulled U.S. support from the United Nations, even though we're permanently placed on all of the major councils in the United Nations. So Donald Trump's going to go to headline. He's going to talk about Donald Trump, nothing about the United Nations, and nothing about bettering the world. Because as we heard last night, Donald Trump doesn't wish the best for his opponents. He hates them.
Somebody should check Tom Homan's taxes, because if he accepted $50,000 in cash in a bag at a cava from FBI agents for legitimate reasons, well, then he should have claimed it on his taxes. On what planet is a bag full of cash a legitimate business deal? Because that's not how people do business. This guy is in charge of getting criminals out of this country. They all knew. The administration, Kash Patel, Pam Bondi, they all knew about this tape. They all knew that he did this. And yet they still brought him on. And I'll remind you, it's taxpayer money. The FBI gave it to him. That's our money, our cash. I really would like to know what he did with it.
The Disney boycott continues to spread and grow. Even stars in a premiere of one of Disney's shows didn't show up to the premiere. And it was so bad that they had to cancel the entire red carpet last night. This is unreal and unprecedented, all because Disney decided to suspend Jimmy Kimmel and give in to Donald Trump. Now, we're reporting from Bloomberg that Disney wants Kimmel back. They met with him Thursday. They kept talking throughout the weekend. They're trying to work out a way to get him back. They're talking to Nexstar and Sinclair, trying to negotiate a way to get Kimmel back on the air. But guys, I think it's too late at this point. And I think Kimmel deserves a much better network to go to than someone that will just discard him like that over a veiled threat from the FCC chairman on someone's podcast. Now, they are saying they want Kimmel back with conditions. They want him to tone down his political rhetoric. And Kimmel's saying, no, I'm not going to be silenced. But he wants to keep his employees. There's a lot of them, like around 200. And then he doesn't want to give a scalp to Trump either. So we'll see what happens here, guys, because this is complicated. And this is going to be probably the defining decision of Bob Iger's legacy. He's going to have to decide if he's going to stand behind free speech, defend free speech, and stop this boycott against Disney, which he created, or is he going to give in to autocracy? This is it. It's his decision. He's got to make it. And we'll see what happens here. Be sure to check back for updates today. There's going to be more coming about this very soon. Make sure to follow me on my other social media networks. Go to my link tree in my bio. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow, share this, and I'll see you back here for the 411.
So we had Charlie's memorial yesterday in Glendale, Arizona at an NFL stadium. A lot of people showed up. A lot of people said some nice things, as you would expect at a memorial. His widow also spoke, Erica. She said she forgave the shooter. Well, that's nice. But I want you to watch her very closely. See, she's 5 years older than Charlie Kirk is. Very intelligent, highly educated. She's an attractive woman. Watch for this woman to step out into the spotlight. I don't know if it's with Turning Point USA or not. I mean, remember, these people look at women as second-class citizens, so I don't know that she could be a leader of this organization, but something's up with her. She seems ready to come out and take the spotlight. we'll see what happens with that. Now, the White House was well represented at this thing. I understand they sent 2 planes full of White House staff. Yeah, the whole bunch of them were there. A lot of them spoke. Susie Wiles, the chief of staff. I understand Stephen Miller spoke, and not surprisingly, that got a little dark. But even Donald Trump stepped up and spoke. Donald Trump said a couple of nice things, and then it went really dark. He started talking about politics. He started talking about the horrible Democrats and how he's been put upon all these years. Typical Donald Trump speech. But it was at the end where he came out and he said, you know, I know that Charlie didn't want the worst for his opponents. He was a good guy. But Donald Trump said, I'm sorry, Erica, that's not me, though. I do want the worst for my opponents. And that's essentially true with Donald Trump. If you're not with him, you're against him. And if you suffer, he doesn't care. And we're seeing people in this country suffer every day. This is what you'd expect out of Donald Trump. Now, I will say this. We got a lot of things going on in this country. Charlie has passed away. It's sad. We've had the memorial. Time to move on. Time to move on to the important issues of this country.
I've seen Rapture talk get bubbling up to the surface, and lots and lots of videos about evangelicals talking about the rapture that is going to happen tomorrow, Tuesday, September 23rd. And I've had a lot of questions about this, and so I've been praying a lot since yesterday morning, since Sunday morning. I've been praying a lot to God for answers about the rapture. I wanted to know what time it's going to be. Is that going to be like Eastern Standard Time or Pacific Time? People keep saying a lot of things. It's like, you know, wear comfortable clothing, and other people are saying you have to be naked and outside. So I've been praying to God for answers to my questions about the rapture, and God just keeps telling me to go check my tire pressure. Like 16 times since yesterday morning, I've been praying to God. I've been praying for answers to my questions about the rapture, and each time God just tells me to go check my tire pressure on my car. I must have checked my tire pressure like 16 times since yesterday morning. No answers are coming. And every time I pray to God some more, he just tells me to go check my tire pressure again. From what I understand, we're not going to need our cars for the rapture. Yeah, I don't know, man.
Hello and good afternoon. So I came across this story that happened apparently back in July, and it's just now being reported. But I am here to say, the one thing I know about liars and cheaters, at some point, they actually tell on themselves, right? They let it slip. They're so confident in their lying, and they know they are lying, that after a while they just start saying stuff because they figure, because they lie so much, you're probably not going to believe it. Well, apparently, back in July, Syphilitic Sid was on this Energy Innovation Summit that happened in Pennsylvania. And during his remarks, he let it slip that if I can pull this sucker off, implying that he did in fact cheat in the 2024 elections. Now, who of us is surprised? But it's the fact that whoever is his handler they're going to learn to stop letting this man talk. Because clearly the dementia is showing, right? And the one thing I can tell you, because I've dealt with people with Alzheimer's and elderly folks and just people, even younger folks who are going through some type of early stage dementia, the truth ultimately comes out. How many times have we heard the stories about people in nursing homes confessing to the most egregious things? Crimes that went unsolved for years. Oh, I don't know. My husband just up and disappeared one day in 1975, and I haven't seen him since. The whole time he'd been buried in the rose bush, and she just now confessing to Maribel at the nursing home. So, I'm here to tell you, hold on, because I know more is coming. Now, we're not going to be out here running in the streets and all the stuff that, you know, the people on the right be trying to accuse us of. We know that. We know that. But we just need to wait it out. The only thing that concerns me is that it's all Republican Congress. They ain't going to do nothing. And even if Dems take back the House and the Senate and all that kind of stuff, it's all going to be a hoax, and, you know, the right is going to lose their mind and say we're just making up shit and we sore losers. Anyway, I say we just take that, hold it dear to our heart, because we know it's true. So, you know, we know he has moments of clarity where he tells the truth, and I think we need to listen and stay tuned, because I'm sure he's going to confess to a whole lot more.
I don't know if this has made international news or not, but have you all heard that Donald Trump accidentally posted a message publicly to Pam Bondi on his Truth Social that was clearly intended as a private message? This message urged Pam Bondi to prosecute his political adversaries, including former FBI Director James Comey, Senator Adam Schiff, and New York Attorney General Letitia James. He said the lack of prosecutions is killing his reputation and credibility. Now, this message was quickly deleted upon realizing his error, and he immediately replaced it with a more positive message. Of course, this incident has drawn attention to the ongoing tensions between Trump and the Department of Justice, particularly surrounding the prosecution of people that he deems political enemies. And of course, it raises questions about using social media for things like this.
What do you know about Charlie Kirk? First, let's be clear. What happened to him should not have ever happened in America. People are allowed to speak their mind freely and safely. We feel badly for his wife and his kids. That said, he has said many repulsive things. I held off from commenting on this because I didn't want to take little snippets here and there and say, well, here's something Charlie said and there's something Charlie said, without having a grasp of the context. Even though over the last couple of years, I'm well aware of the context of Turning Point and Charlie Kirk. I can just tell you that reading the articles that I've been reading reminds me what I have seen over the last couple of years. I do believe he was racist. Do believe you can take some of the sentences he said out of context, because they do, in fact, represent the entirety of how he feels about the races and about women and about Democrats. Look, he was a heavy-duty Trumper, and I consider Donald Trump a vile human being. Right there, he loses credibility with me and millions of others. But did you know that back on the January 6th day of infamy, Turning Point, his organization, had helped bus in participants? I don't know how many or if any participated in the vicious attack on the Capitol, the beating of cops. But I think it's fair to say that some did, or at least they cheered them on. He was strongly involved with the Stop the Steal movement. Just to remind you, that's where Trump said Biden stole the election was rigged. No, it wasn't. I am 100% certain, and you should be too. But that didn't stop Charlie Kirk from promoting that falsehood. Look, I could spend an hour just reading quotes about the things Charlie Kirk said. Actual quotes from him, but I won't do that. I'm just going to read one to you. His words, not mine. It was said last year on his podcast. And I chose this because it's quite indicative of who Charlie Kirk was. He said, quote, "The great replacement strategy." You've heard of that, right? The great replacement theory strategy. Yeah. To continue, the great replacement strategy, which is well underway every single day in our southern border, is a strategy to replace white rural America with something different. And then he continued, "You believe in God, country, faith, family, and freedom. And they won't stop until you and your children and your children's children are eliminated." Charlie Kirk said those words. Again, that thought, those words are indicative of things he has said many times. There are people out there now who are calling for there to be a Charlie Kirk national holiday or a monument. Please, get real. He was a glib, smart man, and he certainly should be with us, with his wife and family today. But please, let us not make him into something that he was not.
The Disney boycott continues to spread and grow. Even stars in a premiere of one of Disney's shows didn't show up to the premiere. And it was so bad that they had to cancel the entire red carpet last night. This is unreal and unprecedented, all because Disney decided to suspend Jimmy Kimmel and give in to Donald Trump. Now we're reporting from Bloomberg that Disney wants Kimmel back. They met with him Thursday. They kept talking throughout the weekend. They're trying to work out a way to get him back. They're talking to Nexstar and Sinclair, trying to negotiate a way to get Kimmel back on the air. But guys, I think it's too late at this point. And I think Kimmel deserves a much better network to go to than someone that will just discard him like that over a veiled threat from the FCC chairman on someone's podcast. Now, they are saying they want Kimmel back with conditions. They want him to tone down his political rhetoric. And Kimmel's saying, no, I'm not going to be silenced. But he wants to keep his employees. There's a lot of them, like around 200. And then he doesn't want to give a scalp to Trump either. So we'll see what happens here, guys, because this is complicated. And this is going to be probably the defining decision of Bob Iger's legacy. He's going to have to decide if he's going to stand behind free speech, defend free speech, and stop this boycott against Disney, which he created, or is he going to give in to autocracy? This is it. It's his decision. He's got to make it, and we'll see what happens here. Be sure to check back for updates today. There's going to be more coming about this very soon. Make sure to follow me on my other social media networks. Go to my link tree in my bio. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow, share this, and I'll see you back here for the 411.
Good morning. I was going through all the different changes that I've noticed that people have informed me of just from within the family, within the Revolution Washington family. And some of our medical care heroes that have been literally saving lives their whole life have told me about the drastic cuts, hospitals closing, people getting kicked off Medicare, people that they used to take care of, just not getting anything anymore. And things are starting to force people to make drastic changes. And what I keep trying to encourage, which I was wonderfully happy to hear about in Texas. Doctors are finding they're developing groups, like their own little network. They're charging a subscription service, essentially, say $5,000 is one example I heard for the year. And it's everything preventative that you can possibly need. So doctors are literally selling a subscription service per year, per patient. Take note, anyone in the medical profession, this is the way to combat what's going on. So I think with American ingenuity and the things that we can do and that we are capable of, we can shift when necessary to solve the problems we have. to solve. And I know it's scary, and I know it takes some figuring shit out, and it's until this problem gets solved, which it will. I am very confident that it will. Yes, they've done this in other countries. Excuse me. Yes, it has taken hold in other countries. We've got all different examples we can look at. But the one thing that we have that they don't have is we are America. We're built different. Our citizens are built different. And even though we have found out through this process, there's way too many of us that are so willingly ignorant to facts that it's disturbing, because otherwise there are people I would think would care a little bit deeper about stuff like some of this. And I don't know why they don't, but it's time for solutions. It's time for all of us to stand up. And when you have doctors in Texas that are basically putting together these programs, it gives me hope that this could be a nationwide thing, because I know doctors are getting fed up with it too. Doctors get, and I hate to say this because of the medical situation I'm in, but because of all these regulatory things, even as wonderful as Obamacare was supposed to be, universal health care and everything else, it was about them losing money and having to work much harder. Well, the silver lining in this is the doctors, that was at least guaranteeing them work. Now they have to scramble because their hospitals are closing. They're losing that extra money that they bitched about so much. So, yeah, doctors, step up. Step up. We need you. But do what they're doing down in Texas. Start a subscription service, $5,000 a year, not counting any emergency stuff. Any emergency stuff is over and beyond. Maybe private hospitals, maybe people with a whole bunch of money, instead of donating to some big orange freaking turd, buy yourself a hospital and lease space for people. Meet them at the shitty rules that they're giving us. Beat them there. Beat them with their own rules. That's what we need to do. That's what American ingenuity is all about. That's what made us great in the first place, and that's what it'll make us great again. It's nothing to do with an orange turd in office and red hats and gold shoes. It has to do with unity and ingenuity, and everybody looking at each other in this country and say, you know what? We will overcome. We will rise from the ashes that this turd burnt to the ground, because that is what we do. Right, Doug? Even Doug says so. Stand strong, ladies and gentlemen, and do not give up, no matter how scary it looks. Because the sun will always rise. We will always be America. Well, we'll get there again.
Okay, I really was going to be done with this conversation, but since Taylor Lorenz is now in my comments casting aspersions on my integrity, we're going to address this one more time. And Taylor, you don't have to believe me on this, because I've come prepared with multiple sources that I think you'll agree with me are fairly fucking unimpeachable. First up, Open Secrets, an organization entirely dedicated to fighting for financial transparency in politics. They agree 501c4s that work in political advocacy are in fact dark money groups. The Sunlight Foundation, they're no longer an active organization, but when they were active, they were also a nonprofit fighting for transparency in government. They also agree, dark money. Next up, the Center for Public Integrity. Just like Sunlight, they are no longer an active organization, but when they were, their mission was to fight for transparency in government and public life by empowering investigative, independent journalists. They also agree 501c4s that work in political advocacy are considered dark money groups. Finally, ProPublica. ProPublica not only agrees that 501c4s that work in political advocacy are dark money groups, they have entire articles about how much of the problem of dark money stems from the use of 501c4s specifically. And this matters to me because campaign finance reform matters to me. If you were to ask the average American to name a type of group that can do dark money, chances are quite a few people would have guessed super PACs. But super PACs are not dark money groups. They spend a lot of dark money, but they are not themselves dark money groups. They are required to disclose their donors to the government. But by funneling money through 501c4s, which are dark money groups, when they have to report it to the government, all they have to say is, oh, well, we got this donation from the 501c4. But then the government can't go to the 501c4 and demand they tell them where the money came from because they are not required to disclose. That's why this topic matters. We need people to be educated so that we can win the fight for campaign finance reform. And the reason why it is so important that they specifically understand the NAACP's position in the world of campaign finance and in the world of 501c structure is because when that fight happens, the opposition, and by the opposition, I mean both the right wing and centrist Democrats, because no matter how many times people defending Taylor in my comments call me a Democratic shill or blue MAGA or a dumb bitch or whatever the fuck else, fact of the matter is, I am actually a fucking leftist, and this is why it matters. And I'm aware of the fact there's going to be quite a few centrist Dems that are also going to be hurdles that we have to be successfully jump in order to win this. And the right wing will absolutely 100% certainty will invoke the NAACP in their defense and in the defense of keeping opaque campaign finance, because that is what right-wing groups always invoke in these conversations. They always 100% of the time lead with bringing up the Supreme Court decision NAACP v. Alabama from 1958. So it is really important that we not spread misinformation about the NAACP in particular. And when that day comes and the right wing invokes that, we're not going to be able to defend our side and fight for campaign finance reform just by stomping our feet and doubling down and insisting that the NAACP is not in fact a C4 or it's not in fact dark money. That's not a winning fucking strategy. And it's also really important that people understand that the NAACP qualifies as a dark money group and is still a very good organization, because when we get to the point of doing campaign finance reform, we need for people to understand why we do still need some carve-outs within that reform, because there are absolutely organizations that have very, very valid reasons for not doing donor disclosure. As I mentioned in my very first video on this topic, I worked for a Muslim advocacy organization for a couple of years, and that organization was directly challenging the administration their first time around in court repeatedly over the Muslim ban. And so they were a 501c4 specifically because they had significant and very reasonable safety concerns about making a donor list that was largely Muslim donors publicly viewable. And the NAACP would be another example of why it is important to have those carve-outs, in my opinion. So I don't bring up the NAACP to attack them. I bring them up to defend them and protect them in this conversation. Because yes, they are a C4. Yes, that means they qualify as dark money. But also, yes, they're still a great, very, very fucking important organization. And when the fight happens, I not only want people to be prepared with talking points and knowledge to fight on behalf of campaign finance reform, I also want them prepared to fight to protect the organizations that still need that carve out.